Okay. Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another session or another edition. Our children, their safety. So I'll just pass over to Peggy while I do some setup. So over to you, Peggy.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for another fantastic week again. I hope everybody is doing fine. I hope you are doing great. It hasn't been easy. We've been running around like headless chicken, as you know. But hey, that is the life. We just need to go along with the flow. So thank you so much for another, on this another episode. Thank you for joining. Today we have an exciting topic that we're going to be discussing about, and I am so looking forward to what we're going to discuss today. So the agenda for today, again, this is a program like Nelly had introduced, but before we proceed, for those who don't know me or Nelly, I am Peggy Barre. I'm a domestic survivor empowerment coach. I'm also the founder of Arise and Thrive Academy. And yeah, let me pass it to Nelly to introduce herself.
Hello everyone. I am Nelly Kwasungwi, a social worker and a transformational life coach. So this session will be focusing on our children's services, because we have been having a lot of questions around our children, their safety, social services, whether they are doing the right thing or they are just targeting families. So today, our focus is on safeguarding. Why is it everyone's responsibility? Because sometimes we feel that as passerbys, we have nothing to do with whatever is going on, the abuse that we can even witness, or whether we are family members. Are we reporting? Are we doing nothing because we don't want to be concerned? You will be surprised and shocked that it is everyone's responsibility. Whether you're a professional, a family member or not, it is your responsibility. So today we'll go deep into that. Over to you, Peggy.
Okay, yes, like Nelly rightly say, there is something that is happening within a community, and whether we like it or not, sometimes we can turn a blind eye. For some reason, I don't know, some people may have a valid reason why they turn a blind eye. It's a statement where you say it's none of my business. That doesn't concern me. I've seen this thing happening in so and so family, but it doesn't concern me. But here we're talking about lives. We're talking about losing lives. And do we sit quiet and watch somebody, whether a child or an adult, go through trauma and even, God forbid, death? We don't want that. So as a community, this is the response that we get most of the time. I don't want to have anything to do with somebody's home. But like Nelly said, do we have the responsibility? Is it our responsibility to make sure that we report abuse or safeguarding that concerns children or even families? Do we have the responsibility to report it, or do we just keep quiet? So this is what we're going to be exploring today. And if you're joining us, we really want your input. We really want your interaction, so that together we can actually have an insight into how we can help our communities and also help ourselves to make sure that we save lives, not just lives of children, but also the lives of parents as well. So I think, Nelly, we're going to go into the first question, because I think we've already explored everything around safeguarding. What involves safeguarding, what is safeguarding, why was social service created for. If you're just joining us, please, you can go and watch the previous videos. We've delved into this. Why was social services created? Why are they for? What are the benefits? What are the, all of that, we've looked into it. So today we're just going to be diving into the reporting aspect and the aspect of raising concerns, especially safeguarding concerns. So the first question that we asked was, why do we, as a community, especially the BME, the Black, Asian, and minority community, why do we keep quiet when it comes to safeguarding concerns? I don't know, Nelly, whether from your perspective of your social worker, would you want to, and a parent as well, would you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, so as a parent, as a mother, as a social worker, as a support worker, as life coach, I have seen, I have heard people say, I am struggling, but I do not want to ask for help. And the question is, why is that? So there are so many reasons why people do not want or avoid asking for. There are many reasons. Sorry. There are many reasons why people are hesitant to, or people just want to keep quiet. The first one I'll talk about is fear of consequences or the unknown. In previous sessions, we've talked about lack of knowledge around social services, safeguarding procedures, what safeguarding is. So people are hesitant because they fear that if they go and report, probably, so it is two ways, probably they will get the help for the child, but then back at home, they will get in severe trouble. And not just at home, but from family members, community, and the society. So then they'll be like, okay, I'll just manage. I'll not talk about it. I'll just be quiet. And then the abuse goes on and on and on to the point where sometimes it reaches crisis. And like Peggy said, unfortunately, some children, some individuals have passed away because people prefer to sit quiet. The next one I'll talk about is cultural or societal influences. So I'll give an example, which in my community, in the Afro-Caribbean community, is very, very common. So domestic abuse, which Peggy knows a lot more about that because she does a lot of training around domestic abuse. So in the Afro-Caribbean community, domestic abuse is very, very common. But on the other hand, the cultural aspects that if you are married, you have to stay married. So then it prevents people to even voice out that they are suffering, they are going through domestic abuse, and the children are being impacted. So then they will sit quiet. Some parents that I've spoken to, they say that when they have arguments or fights, the children are in their rooms and they don't see what's going on. But unfortunately, as a social worker, we know from research that children do not suffer only from physical abuse. When children are in a house, when the parents are having a fight, and the children are in their bedrooms, the children can hear the noises, probably the shouting from either or both parents, and even just the energy in the house. Most of the times, one of the parents will want to pretend as if everything is going all right, but then it will come out. Because, for instance, if you have just had a fight or an argument, you might come out with bruises, you might have a cut, you might have some physical injuries, and you try to hide that. If a child sees that, they might not voice it, they might not talk about it, but then they feel worried inside. They might be asking themselves, what happened? Will it happen again? Is the weaker parent going to be okay? The child will keep on asking. But because children do not talk about it, this is from an experience that I've had with parents that I've worked with. They say because the child has not talked about it, it means that the child does not know about it. But that's not true. Another one is if you've had an argument and say you don't have any physical injuries, but mentally you are traumatized. And probably you come to a child and say the child approaches you maybe to have a play or a cuddle or things like that because you are very upset. You might want to tell the child no, but instead of just gently stopping the child, without realizing, you might push the child because you have that so much anger, that energy is in you. You just push the child, but you didn't do it intentionally. In your head, you felt that you were just pushing the child gently. And if the child falls and injures themselves, it's common for parents to say, oh, you are just exaggerating. But that's exactly the impact that it had on the child. So, because we just want to be accepted in our community, our society, we prefer to be suffering. But then our children suffer, and it doesn't just end when they are children. They carry the trauma into their adulthood, and it has so many impact on the child because when the child goes to school, the child might be feeling agitated in school. They cannot concentrate in school because they are thinking, what is going back at home? Is the weaker parent going to be okay? So they'll just be worried about home life and not concentrate in the home environment. And unfortunately, children have died. So I'll give an example. Like in the year 2000, there was a child, Victoria Klimbie. She was just 8 years old. She was living with her auntie, who took her from one of the African countries, brought her into the UK, and the auntie was living with her partner. And this child was seen by many professionals, the police, social services, social workers, but unfortunately, there were failings. And this child died without having the intervention. The worst thing is that none of the professionals captured the voice of this child because the focus was on what the auntie was saying. So imagine, it might be one of you watching me talking, it might be something that you are going through. Or you might know someone who is going through something similar. It is better to speak out because it is your responsibility, it is my responsibility, it is our responsibility to keep children safe. So I can go on and on, but I know we have other questions, so I'll just stop here. But if anyone has any questions, please put that in the chat so we can answer, or if you have any contributions, please feel free to share.
Yeah, that's just absolutely what you said there was spot on, Nelly. One of the things that I picked up on is the assumption that if a child did not say anything about two parents fighting or what is happening at home, that means the child doesn't know. And that is massive fault. And that is one of the stigmas or one of the myths around domestic abuse. Like you rightly say, the energy alone. Do you know most of the time there is an African saying that when two elephants fight, is the grass that suffers. The grass doesn't speak. Do you see the grass speak? The grass doesn't speak, but the grass suffers in one way or the other. So that is just a child. Put a child in the position of the grass, where the grass doesn't speak, but the grass is suffering. The grass is being, stepped upon, trampled upon. Even the energy in the house itself. Do you know what it means for mommy and daddy not to talk for a day or for a week or for months? Do you know the impact, the psychological impact that is creating in those children? So again, like you say, these are some of the things that nearly from the standpoint of us as most of the Afro-Caribbean, when we go into a house, do you know that the first thing we usually pay attention not on the children, we pay attention on the person that we've gone to see. If we went to see the parent, we pay attention on what is happening with the parent, what the parent is saying. We do not pay attention on the children. And I mean, just glance on the children, like to just see what are the kids doing? Are they happy? Or this is where we miss most of the signs. And I'm sure that is what even was happening with Victoria Klimbe. But the one with Victoria is that the sad thing is that professionals were involved, but yet they missed all the signs. Why? Because they were focusing more on what the parent was the parent was saying. So just before we move to the next question, I just feel that, Nelly, even as a skill or even as a deliberate action, or we need to, as a community, kind of know in our mind that when we go into a home, at least we're not going to poke into. I cannot come into your house and be poking into what concerns you, Nelly. But at least by looking on a child's face or by looking at certain things, at least I can be able to pick or tell that there is something not right. And it's not about you blowing your trumpet to say, oh, I went to Nelly's house. And no, sometimes it's about you. If you have the duty of care, or you really care for that person as your community, or care for that person as somebody that you know, there is no harm to step forward and say, but hey, is everything okay? Are you all right? Sometimes just that question, are you okay, means a lot. It can save life. So these are the little things that we need to try and practice as a community to make sure that we look after one another, not just after the adults, but look after the children as well. So yeah, I don't know, except that any question comes up, Nelly. If not, we can move to question number 2. The question number 2 was, I don't know, Nelly, have you got it?
What to do when you witness child abuse?
Yeah. Would you want to throw? So what to do when you witness a child abuse?
Yeah.
From social service perspective, do you want to throw a light on it? And then on it, for the domestic abuse perspective, I can throw some light on that as well.
Okay, so when we talk of witnessing abuse, sometimes you might see it. Sometimes a child might make a disclosure to you that this is what is going on. Either of that, but you need to be mindful, just like Peggy has said, when, say, you visit a home and there's a new person in that home, like whether you are a professional, a friend, or something, the behavior in that house changes because people want to keep their secrets secret only in the house. So that's why they change, they behave differently when people come in. But you can identify to an extent. But when you have those concerns, especially if there are subtle concerns, you can even try a way to call for that child and speak to that child on their own. Though most of the time, we need to be mindful that parents, if they know that there's something going on, they will not want anyone, even if it's a friend, to speak with that child. Regardless of what the concern is. If say you are concerned, you need to take action. It's not just professionals. Whether you are a neighbor, whether you are a friend, you are a passerby, you need to take action when you witness abuse. Abuse is not only with children, there are also adults as well. But once you notice or you observe abuse, take action. There are different things that you can do. If, say, you are in a school setting, speak to or ask to speak to the safeguarding lead, or share your concerns with anyone who is at the reception to say you are worried about. Give it in details. Make sure that if, say, the child has made any disclosures, the child has told you anything, make sure that you stay calm, listen to that child, because that child must have trusted you or felt connected to you to share that information. So don't be frightened when I say the child feels comfortable, it doesn't mean that the child has to know you before they open up. Sometimes it's around frequencies, energies that the child will feel connected to you, and they might come and talk to you that they are worried about something. Take your time, be calm, ask the child. When the child is speaking, listen attentively. And use, if you want to make the report, say if you are in a school setting, to the receptionist or the safeguarding lead, make sure you use the words that the child used, because if you use your own words, it might come across different, because the child might be using words that mean something to them and another meaning to yourself. Make that report. The safeguarding lead in school, they will know what to do. They have safeguarding policy and they will follow it. If it's in a health setting, again, speak to the reception or to the nurse or to the doctor. They also have safeguarding policy. If so, you will realize that it's not only professionals who can take action, because in professional settings, they have that responsibility and they have a guide, safeguarding guide that they follow through, because if they miss that, there are consequences. However, if as a non-professional or a friend, a neighbor, you notice that the abuse is severe, here we are talking of the safety, life and death. Ring 999 immediately so that you can save that child. So you have things that you can do and not just wait for a professional, because like social workers, we rely a lot on information from the public. Though there are times where social services receive loads and loads of information that is not valid, but it is good to make such reports, because whenever social services get reports that are, say, anonymous reports that are malicious, we don't know if they are malicious or not, because social services or social workers are not there in every household. So whenever those information comes in, social workers will go out and do their investigation. When they do their investigation, it is either that they'll make a conclusion whether that concern is factual or it isn't, and then from there they will make a decision on what to do based on the information that they've gathered and the conclusion that they've made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just goes to, again, kind of emphasize on the fact that there are sometimes that we as a community, we tend to feel like, no, if I report that thing or I report what I've seen or heard, I might put the person in trouble. And for that reason, we kind of draw our feet. And that is where you hear more statement like, no, it doesn't concern me. But then again, like I say, as parents, put yourself in the shoes of that child. And you said something there that was really, really important, Nelly. Well, the guidelines in any abuse, especially when it comes to domestic abuse, is that whenever a victim tells you that they're going through abuse, even if you don't do anything, the only thing you can do for them is believe them. Just believe them, because I know, again, in our community, sometimes we are tempted to say, oh no, that you're not saying the truth, especially if you know the other partner. We usually say, oh no, what you're saying is not the truth. And this is the thing that sometimes we even shoot our own children down when they want to say something. We just like shut them down. Oh no, that's not true. So these are some of the things that we need to kind of, again, come back to our mindset, where we need to learn to believe people. And no wonder why many people will not want to speak up, because the first thing they're going to be saying, especially from the domestic abuse point of view, is that, who is going to believe me? Who is going to believe me? Especially if the perpetrator is out there portraying like this nice, harmless person that is caring, that is that, and that's the image that this perpetrator is painting out. And then you, the victim, you're coming to say, no, that person is the contrary. The first thing that is going to come to your mind is, who is going to believe me? And that is why many people will sit quiet, but yet dying inside. So this is the same thing that even our children, sometimes parents will go out there painting a nice picture as if everything is fine, everything is going in the house well. I get my kids nice clothes, I cook them this, I do the this, but the feeling that those children are feeling is something different. And then that child as well is saying, if I go out and tell auntie or tell uncle and go tell this person that this is what I'm going through, who is going to believe me? Are they going to believe me? So again, this is what we're saying, that, as you rightly said, Nelly, is about, having a conversation. First of all, believe them. And again, safeguarding lead, it depends on whichever, if it is a school setting, hospital setting, if it is at home. Sometimes they are even safeguarding a child line. There's a child line that you can call. You can call a child line. And sometimes you may not call. As Nelly said, it's good to give as much information as possible. But sometimes you can just take the basic information. It might just be the house, the address where that child is living. It might just be the first name of that child, and just say, what, I'm calling because of this so and so concern about this child. It's free. Nobody will pay. Sometimes you may even call anonymously. You want to report it anonymously, but so long as you've reported it is right. Because again, like Nelly said, some people can do it maliciously. So long as that child, you've seen that child has reported something, and you know that, at least say something. Because God forbid, what if you sit quiet and maybe down the line, in a week's time, you're hearing on the news that that child is dead? Come on, as a human being, how are we going to feel, or how will you feel? So this is the thing that we need to make sure that at least we step out there to protect, at least the duty of care. Let us care for our community, not to harm, not to tarnish somebody, not to bring down a family, but rather to save a life. It's about saving life. In terms of domestic abuse, because safe child safeguarding or child abuse, if you look in most majority cases, Nelly, it will go hand in hand with domestic abuse. Either either one of the parents is also going through domestic abuse, and just because of what you have said earlier before, that parent is going through a lot. They're going through psychological torture, they're going through this, and maybe the first scapegoat beside you is what? Is the child. The child is a weaker person, and sometimes you vent this parents may vent unconsciously vent their anger or frustration on children. And so sometimes you may be thinking, why are they doing that? It as a result of another hand pressing on them, which is the perpetrator. The perpetrator may even be pushing the victim. I've seen where the perpetrator is pushing the victim. You are not disciplining those child, that child enough. You are not doing enough as a mother. You need to do that. You need to do that. You need to do that. And there's that constant pressure that is being put on on the weaker partner. And that weaker partner is applying that pressure on those children, and in a way abusing those children. But then sometimes we turn a blind eye. We don't even know why that is happening. It's happening because that partner is being pressured from the dominator, the dominant partner. So you can see the cycle. So again, this is where, as a community, we need to be vigilant. We need to be vigilant, because majority cases, if you see a person that is going through domestic abuse, trust me, their children may be going through some sort of psychological trauma, which they need help in one way or another. So, like you said, Nelly, it's about, again, if you spot domestic abuse, again, is a tricky area where you don't want, again, to poke your mouth into something where you're going to get into trouble. But like I say, if you know that that person, especially if they've come forth to disclose to you, then I think you as an adult, again, like I always say, you must not, you can't, we cannot advise them. Like we always say, the decision of a victim should come from the victim herself or him or the victim himself. We cannot make decision. If it is their decision that they're going to leave, if it is their decision that they're going to step forward and report, if it's their decision, that is their decision. But what we're saying is we're going to be giving them is more of a less a support and signposting them to the right people, where right organization, we can signpost them to the right organization. We can give them the number maybe of domestic help line. If they haven't got the number, we can give them the tools, give them the contacts, give them the, and then let them make that decision themselves to either make that call, except you find that they're in a critical situation where they may lose their life. That is where you yourself as a person have a duty of care to either actually ring and then you report it. So yes, I don't think if there's any question.
I think I just have something to add to that, what you've said, Pella. You've really said it right. There's a lot of domestic abuse cases. Like I was doing a research based on Thameside statistics, and from the police, it shows that 75% of police call-outs are linked to domestic abuse. This is a recent research, and imagine 75%. So it just goes in line with what you are saying. And in addition to that, you are saying, oh, there is increasing rate of mental health in young people, children, even as young as primary school, early years in primary school. You question yourself, where is all of this coming from? Not all of them are organic, which means that they have inherited. Some are just, they are the influence of the society, of the home environment. And then so we have the domestic abuse. We have the cultural aspects where we don't talk about domestic abuse, because once you are in a marriage, you stay in a marriage. And then we don't talk about mental health. What kind of mix is this? What kind of trauma are we exposing our children to? And then you see it and you say nothing because you don't want to get involved. So let me just give an example. In 2007, I don't know if you've heard of this, there was a baby Connelly. That child died after several months of abuse with the parents, despite having contact with 60 professionals, and they missed to save this child. And this was because professionals did not share information. So again, this is like a jigsaw puzzle. So if you as a neighbor, you hear the banging on the walls at night or whatever time, or the screaming and the shouting, and you say, oh no, this is what they do all the time, I don't want to get involved. And then one day you see the police outside, that one of the residents of one of your neighbors has passed away because of domestic abuse. How will you feel? So this is why we need to take action. It doesn't mean that you poke your nose into people's affairs, but there's a normal noise making or screaming. But then when it goes to the extraordinary, or when it's unusual, I mean, we need to step up, take that responsibility. It's better to report it and then it turns out that there was nothing, than to sit quiet, that, oh, that's what they've always done. You normalize it, and then you hear that something bad has happened. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Totally. Yeah, and unfortunately we are in a reactive society. We're not in a proactive society. We're in a society where when we see things happen, we don't do anything that may stop the worst from happening. But when the worst happens, that's when we're running helter-skelter to try and see but it's already happened. So again, this is something that we, again, as a community, we need to start raising that awareness that it is by protecting, by watching, by being alert, paying attention, in a way to help and support our community. Right. Kate, we can see you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. So again, question number 3, Nelly. What was the question?
So, what does the law say?
Right. I'm gonna leave that with you then. What does the
Okay.
law say?
So, social work is underpinned by legislation. So, because we are on the children's side, one of the main legislation is the Children Act.
Yeah.
It was Children Act 1989 and it was revised in 2004, sorry. So, this act, it gives a responsibility for children to be safeguarded. So, if you have any concerns, there are safeguarding procedures that needs to be followed by professionals. So different organizations will have their own processes that you need to, or wherever you find yourself, you need to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And there is in organizations, say in schools, in the hospitals, they have designated safeguarding leads, which means there's a head of safeguarding. If there are any concerns around safeguarding, it is channeled through that person who take upon their responsibility to do all the investigations or doing the referral to children's services to carry on, or if it's adult, to adult services to carry on whatever further investigations are needed. There's also another legislation that working together to safeguard children. So again, it still comes, everyone needs to be part of it. So though it is a legislation, it means here that it is not just a social worker's job to safeguard
Mm-hmm.
a child. No, every professional. And from this legislation, there are some professionals that need to be involved. Like we have the police, health, schools, and social services, these are 4. But this is not the limit. Any other professional that is involved with the family needs to share information, because from, like I've talked about Victoria Klimby and Baby P, the findings were that professionals failed to share information
Mm-hmm.
because people's lives and the information that we gather are like jigsaw puzzles. We need to chip in the little bit that you have, chip it in, and then together it will give a bigger picture of what is going on with that child, because sometimes the children don't have that vocabulary. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what the legislation says. And there's another that keep children safe in education, because
Mm-hmm.
when children are in education, they are seen by professionals when they go to school, which is one of the things that education is mandatory, is very, very important, because at least professionals have an eye on the child or the
Mm-hmm.
children. And one other thing is, do not there's a legislation, or there's a policy around secrecy. Once safeguarding is concerned, there is nothing about secrecy. Let's say
Yeah.
a child discloses something to you that they are being abused or they are being treated in a way that they don't like it. Never, ever, ever promise that child or that person that you will keep the information secret, because if you do that, then you are already failing that child or
Mm-hmm.
that individual. Rather, tell them that you will take this to the right people to deal with it, because
Mm-hmm.
then you are already open to tell them that you will not keep secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it is mandatory for the professionals who are designated with safeguarding to follow through. So you have like a lot of professionals, even, yeah, a lot of professionals, even non-professionals, they feel that social workers have all the answers. But no, It's just that social workers hold the case of whoever is being allocated to them, but they don't have all the answers, which is why everyone brings in their input and helps inform the social worker, who will then make a decision. But if you, as a parent, as a neighbor, you have information, or a social worker goes to you, or a police officer goes to you to gather information, and you don't give that information, it's not being helpful. So that's the legislations that the main legislations that we have, or is there for safeguarding.
Right. So we just as you're just talking, I just something just question just came to my mind. It might be a silly question.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a neighbor and I witness child abuse, or I witness that a child is going through abuse, and then I don't speak up, but then there's evidence that I did witness it, would that work? Would I be is there a law? Would I be breaking the law? Is there anything that would say, like, I knew about it, but I hid the information from? Is there any?
Okay, as far as legislation is concerned, there is no legislation that you have hidden evidence. However, you have a conscience,
Yeah,
and that will be something that you will blame yourself for it. That, oh, if I had talked about it, that situation wouldn't have gone worse. So that's
yeah,
why it is good when you have concerns to report it. It's better to report it, and when social workers do their investigation, they don't find anything, than for you to sit quiet and then you hear something else. Because when, depending on the case, when there are ongoing investigations, they can speak to neighbors. It depends on the nature of the case.
mhm,
Sometimes, okay, let's say if it's domestic abuse obviously doesn't end only within the house. Neighbors are involved, in the sense that they can hear banging, screaming, shouting, and things like that. So when the police or social workers come, they will speak to the neighbors. So
yeah,
if you are one of the neighbors who don't want to get involved, you'll say nothing, or you say you didn't witness anything. But then if
yeah,
actually you knew, then it's just down to your conscience, because we
yeah,
have consciences. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's rightly so. What you said is rightly, because I think we come back to the point where we're talking about that conscience, knowing that you haven't done something, but then you find out that something worse happened to that person. Gosh, how will you feel about it? And I usually say, you put yourself in people's shoes. If
Yeah.
that was you, if that was your child, how would you feel? And again, we are talking about this thing because, again, in our community we tend to hide a lot of things. What if somebody worse happened to that child? Your conscience will not be, yes, exactly like Priska is saying.
Yeah.
Again, as a community, because this is again a community where we try to shield things, and we shield things thinking that we're doing the right thing. We don't want to say things, we don't want to, but then, no, sometimes I'm tempted, Nelly, to look. I know mental health cut across every race. It's not just the Afro-Caribbean. It cut across every race. But again, we tend to look at, if you want to look at the rate of the gangs, and all of that, we do we want to, I know we have talked about it, we've touched a little bit about the fact that sometimes we neglect these things when the child is still that young, and then we don't pay attention. Again, we are in a society where we are very busy as parents. Come on, everybody's running to work. We come back, you're tired, you want to go to bed. You don't even, sometimes the child wants to say something in your ear, you don't even have the time to listen what that child wants to share, and all of that. So we just cover, 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 and then that child, it becomes a norm, where that child actually begin to hide things now, because they feel like, they're not being heard. But then, this is where, as parents, again, we've talked about where that support system needs to start from that very, very early on, young age, where we need to let our children know that they can trust us. But again, we sometimes, even though we make the children trust us, they'll get to an age nearly where they will still not disclose. They will still not say anything due to peer pressure and all of that. But again, as parents, this is where we will know, again, you're talking about our conscience, where our conscience is satisfied that, you know what, I have given the support that I had to give to this child. I have made myself available to this child. I have made this child understand that I'm always there to listen, So that is where we know that, okay, maybe that is where you can seek external help or seek external support to help that child. But in a nutshell, as a community, like we say, we need to be alert about children. I've seen society where nearly we go, maybe we can go for a party. Talk about the cases where we go even for a child's birthday party, but it's adult that will hijack that party. And we are all feasting as adults. We are all focusing on ourselves, but we keep the children. We don't really look at what is happening with the children, And again, this is the same thing that we're saying in household. It's about being vigilant. It's about asking, are you okay? It's about, having little conversation with that child. Hey, are you okay? How is school? How is school going? How are you feeling in school? Little questions like that. You may pick one or two things, that you may help that child or even alert it. Because trust me, Nelly, there's sometimes that even our children, have you noticed that sometimes our children may not even disclose to us, but they'll feel comfortable to disclose to somebody that comes into the house, or maybe to an auntie or an uncle. And this is where auntie and uncles, we need to be alert to ask those questions to those children, because who knows, we may just be that person that they want to talk to. And then in that way, we can actually alert the parents that, hey, this is what is happening. Or if worse come to the worst, if we notice that the parent actually is the abuser, then of course we can now step forward to see what we can do to help that child.
Yeah,
Is there any question online?
I think, Peggy, you've said so many things there. I'll just talk on a few. So, it is very common for parents to say, I've given everything to my child or my children, and expecting that the children must be open to yourselves. Yeah. But forgetting to know that the connection, emotional connection, goes far deeper than just buying the stuff for the child. I know you've talked about parents being busy. To an extent, it's down to choice.
Yeah.
Because, yes, we know that we need to work to foot the bills and pay what we need to do with money. But sometimes it's weighing them up. Do you need to be picking those extra shifts, or do you need to ensure your child is safe? So it's to weigh the two. But again, if you are working and you have a structure in place to connect emotionally with the children, that makes a massive difference, because by the time you are opening the door to come in, the children are very happy that welcome, welcome. Yes, you might be tired. There's a way that you can approach the children and explain to them, because they're just so excited to see you that you are back home, forgetting to know that you have had a long day at work and you are tired. You can explain to the children, just give me 30 minutes so I can freshen up and rest and eat, then we can talk. If you want to use an approach like that, make sure that it is consistent. I remember there was a time when I was really struggling with my children. And like you said, they were not opening up. I knew that they were struggling, but they could not open up because I was also struggling. But what I did was, because I knew I was the one who could help the children. So what I did was, I allocated 30 minutes each in the evening to be with each child. They knew the time for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And though it was difficult because that was 2 hours of my day gone, but
Mm-hmm.
it was really nice. And I was consistent with it. And they the connection that we built, I mean, it didn't just work straight away.
Mm-hmm.
It was a struggle initially, but as it went on, because I was consistent, when it
Mm-hmm.
started, I would come and sit, and no child would want to talk to me. We'll just sit there, but it was their time, it was their space. We would sit there. So for me, that's a way that parents can use to connect with their children. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, I think I was speaking to someone yesterday, just an African parent who was talking about why children don't open up to some of the parents. And it's down to what you've explained. Because sometimes as parents, we just tell children, do this, do that, without giving them any explanation, no reason. And then children need that explanation so they can understand. Probably because that's how I am. I prefer you to explain me something if you want me to do something. Because if you just say, do this, most of the time I will not do it because I don't understand why I need
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So I think, like I was telling this person yesterday, I said, just spend some time. Yes, when growing up, we were not things were not being explained to us, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that we will carry on with that, because we know it is having an impact on our children and our relationship with our children. If we
Mm-hmm.
don't do what we need to do to make our homes safe, secure, comfortable for our children, then unfortunately, we are opening our doors for the children to go out. And when they go out, there are gangs, like you talk about gangs, waiting with open arms to get our children, where they will feel that they are being valued, they are being loved. But that period, they are being groomed into something that will be very, very damaging to them. So
Mm-hmm.
it is said, charity begins at home.
Absolutely.
So I'll end there for now.
That is, yeah, that is so important. What you said was really, really informative. And one thing you were just talking again, I picked up on is that, especially in the, I've seen a lot in terms of single parent household, or in a parent household where one of the parents are struggling in one way or the other. Our children, they've got conscience, and our children, they love us, they love the parents, right? And especially the weaker parents, which especially the moms, right? The parents, and I've seen this a lot among male children, where the male children will want to be like that protective shield, or protecting that parent. They are the one that will be saying, you know what, I will do this to make sure that mom is happy, mom is okay. When they have that mindset of protecting you because they love you as a parent, they don't want to hurt you by telling you their own struggles, because they feel that maybe by exposing their own struggle is going to instead make you more stressed. And that is why they will rather deal with their struggle alone. And you always see that this is where we talk about domestic abuse, where the child stands as a shield, against the victim, right? This is where you will see that they will back up all their own stuff. They want to act like they are the man. They want to act like they are the grown up. Even with daughters, sometimes daughters want to also kind of carry that shield, that, what, I can do it for myself. I'm a big girl. I can do it. I don't want to stress you, mommy. I don't want to stress you, daddy. But this is where, that when they say they don't want to stress us, that is where they bottle up things. And just like we've mentioned, and Priska have also touched on that point, I think sometimes, I don't know about you, but I found it very, very, I found it even among my children. There are sometimes that my kid will even talk to an auntie more than to me. And this is where we are all saying that as a community, or as especially the BME community, we need to at least be open, be receptive to our children. Our children know our community. When they see an adult is auntie, when they see is uncle, especially the ones that are closer. If we make it a habit that when we go into a home, we build relationship with these children, so that those children, what they cannot tell mommy or daddy, they can come to uncle or auntie, and tell uncle or auntie, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what I think in that way, we can actually get our children talking. If they don't talk to us directly, at least they can talk to someone who can also relate to us. Yeah. So, we must change that narrative for better. That was
Yeah,
Kate.
I just yes, Kate, that we need to change the narrative. Thank you, Kate, for watching and that comment. Yes, because we grew up that way doesn't mean that we need to continue that way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have choice. It's a must. We must change that narrative, because just looking at it now, if we as parents, we cannot make the changes,
Mm-hmm.
we are the ones who have the baton now, because we cannot be relying on our parents because their own generation has gone. We are the ones now who can make that change. And that is where, like for me, my focus is on parents. Don't give the excuse that my parent, my great grandparent did this, did not do that. No. Now, with the advancement in technology, instead of you spending hours and hours watching whatever thing you're watching on social media, spend some time on your personal development. Because whatever brought you from where you were till your stage now will not be that same thing that will
Mm-hmm.
take you to your next level. And that is exactly what Kate has said, that we need to change that narration. Because if we make those changes, it will reflect on our children. Because,
Yeah.
like, we cannot expect as parents to behave in the funny kind of way that we are behaving now,
Mm-hmm.
and then expect our children to behave in a different way. And it is
No.
embarrassing where we will tell, or parents will tell children, see how your friend is behaving. The parent doesn't know how the child's friend's parents are
Mm-hmm.
treating the child at home, and you embarrass your child to say they need to be behaving that way. To me, I see it as, parents, it is your responsibility. Don't be embarrassing your child, because though you are embarrassing your child, but you are exposing your ignorance in public by expecting your child to behave in a way that you've never taught them how to behave, or you have not lived that life for them to copy. So then why do you expect them to live otherwise?
Mm. Which is absolutely right. What you said is right. But I'm looking at this society again, Nelly. There's sometimes that you have done your best as a parent. Like, let me take, for example, there's simple dishwashing in my house. I've been teaching my children how to wash dishes from very, 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 very young age. Every day I'm telling them, wash dishes. You need to wash dishes. You need to, until they're adults. We are still fighting on those dishes. So if they go out there, will somebody say that their parents did not teach them? You get? So this is the thing that, again, I completely get what you mean. But again, as parents, I don't know whether it gets to a point where we just tell ourselves that, again, maybe it's that conscience thing where you just tell yourself that, you know what, well, I have done my best. I have talked to you, I have shown you how to do it, I have even motivated you how to do it, I've assisted you how to do it. But at this age, you still want me to keep doing it. When are you gonna learn? So at least then my conscience is clear that I've done the job.
You see, Peggy, there. I understand that. So, if you look at it, you want the children to do things your way and not their way.
Right.
Which is why sometimes take a step back. You have done it for so many years,
Yeah.
which is not that they don't know. They know, because I'm sure there'll be times where they will wash the dishes without you saying, but I'm talking about dishes because I am in that pot of soup and I've learned my lesson. Because I realized that I wanted them to do it the way I want, not the way
Yeah.
they want. Because, like,
Yeah.
okay, when I cook, as I'm cooking, I'm washing. So by the time food is ready, all the dishes are washed. But
Yeah.
that's not the case with some of my children. Some they'll finish cooking and there'll be piles and piles and piles of dishes and
Yeah.
pots and pans, and then at the end they won't wash it. Sometimes some will eat and soak the dishes, and I'm like, how can you even soak a glass that you drank water? so so it's not that they don't know. They
Yeah.
know fully well, because, like, for me, the surprising thing is, like, when my daughters went to uni, whenever I visited, their uni was spot on. And I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on? So
Yeah.
I've just left it. But again, I still remind them. I said, listen, wash the dishes.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you are a failure.
Yeah. No, but now what I'm doing to preserve my peace, Nelly, because I've said it gets to a point in time in life where parents, we just need to preserve our peace. So now what I need to do, because me too myself to an extent, I've got my own OCD where I want things to be organized. I want things to be this way. So now I'm trying, like Kate said, we need to change that narrative. I'm trying to readjust my mind that when I walk into the kitchen, even if I see the dishes empty, I'm just gonna pretend as I haven't seen it. But the problem is that I will not eat until that sink is washed. And this is where I will now go in and start washing the sink, because if I sit there eating and that sink is full, my body is doing me a type. I cannot enjoy my food. You understand? So I'm trying. I'm trying. God knows that I'm
Yeah.
trying.
You see, like, some years back, there was a time that OCD thing was coming. I realized it. And I decided, see, I had to hold myself back from washing the dishes.
Mhm.
And you won't believe, the dishes stayed in the sink for 3 days, because all those days I was working. And on the third day, when I came back, everything was washed.
Oh.
Everything was washed, because what I was doing was, because all the dishes all the plates were all used up, all the cutlery were used up, so there was nothing. And
Yeah.
I would go there, take the sponge to wash, and I'll be like, oh no, I don't want to wash it for a reason. So on
Yeah.
the third day when I came back, it was all washed.
Yeah.
Just to read what Priska has written, that you are right, Nelly, but children have a lot of peer pressure from their friends. 100% I agree with that. Again, just linking that with the dishwashing. So my one of my daughters, she enjoyed washing dishes. So there was
Mhm.
a time she was reluctant to wash dishes. And I noticed it. I was like, what is going on? But when I tell her to wash dishes, she will say, yes, mommy. But then she will not even touch the dishes. So it went on, went on, went on. So I ended up washing the dishes. And one time I said, you know what? I need to know what's going on.
Mhm.
And this is what she told me. She said, Mom, the reason I don't want to be washing dishes is because when she went to school, they were like, what do you do after school and things like that. And she said, after my mom cooks and we eat, I wash the plate and tidy up the kitchen and things like that. And her friends laughed at her that, haha, are you a slave? Do you get paid? And things like that. So when my daughter told me that, at least I felt relieved that I knew the
Yeah.
push. And
Yeah.
I asked her, is that really what's going on? I said, okay, do you want me to pay you to wash dishes? She said, no. I say, so what do you want? So again, just linking that with the peer
Yes.
pressure, because that was not something that my daughter had ever thought of, but it's
Yeah.
the pressure from the friends, because she didn't want to go to school. And when talking about the activities, and she says she's washing plates for her friends to be laughing at her. So there are many different peer pressures that our children go through from their friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So we're just conscious of time. We've gone above time. So I don't know whether Nelly, that is it. We've got just one more question, whether we want to rush over it, rush over the last question.
Okay, so the last question is the topic for today. Why is safeguarding everyone's responsibility?
Okay.
So I will just go quickly through that. So we know that children are vulnerable and they rely on their parents, on adults, whether it's auntie, uncle, teacher, whoever, but they rely on adults. So if you think of it, where is the safeguarding concerns coming from?
Hmm.
From these same people, and most particularly from those very close to the child, the people who are meant to be taking care and protecting these children. They are the ones who abuse these children because of
Mhm.
their own, probably from their own traumas that have not been resolved, but that is
Mhm.
not acceptable. So, because children are very vulnerable, that is why it is everyone's responsibility. Do not consider that a parent will always treat the child right. So, that's why
Mm.
sometimes you need to be that nosy neighbor, that if you see things not going right, and you think of it again and said, and it doesn't feel right within you, do something, like we said at the very beginning. We
Mhm.
know that early intervention saves lives,
Yeah.
because if you report early, probably that family is struggling with some issues, whether it's domestic abuse, mental health, financial struggle, whatever, and they get early help, that the abuse that the child is going through might reduce. So always take
Mhm.
action. Again, no one person sees the whole picture. It's just like the puzzles that I talked about earlier. So it's whatever concern you have, talk about it. So if collectively, say neighbor, school, GP, the doctors, other professionals, they come with their information collectively, it will give a bigger picture. So it is everyone's responsibility.
Mhm.
So it is not just for professionals. So stay with your eyes open, because don't think that abuse will be only at home. No, sometimes in public. And if
Yeah.
you can see it in public, then imagine what can be going on at home. Because when
Yeah.
it's in public, people try a lot to mask. Like sometimes you might see a parent, just the way they look at a child, you can see the rage in their eyes, but then they won't want to talk about it because they know that there are people who can be watching. So
Mhm.
always put an eye. So I think,
That's
yeah.
absolutely, yeah, that's really, really, really important. And I think that covers, what we've talked about today. We've talked about why we keep quiet, why as a community, do we keep quiet when we see abuse, especially, against our children? Why do we keep quiet? We've talked about the importance of speaking up. We've talked about, you know why is it everybody's responsibility? What does the law says? And then you've expanded on what the law says again around children safeguarding. We've talked about the impact of it. Also, those are the things that as a community we need to start from up here. Our mind, our mindset, the narrative, the beliefs, because if we continue to function with the mindset and the belief that we've had from our own childhood, then that continues to happen even with our own children. But we live in a society where things are different, especially in a country where things are different. So we need to try and shift from that mindset, shift from where we're coming from, and try to see how we can do things differently, not just for ourselves, but for the whole community. I might be able to save a child and their parents won't, just by my actions or just by being proactive. So as a community, it is our duty to make sure that there is a lot of abuse in people's home. Absolutely so. Yes, absolutely. So a lot of abuse in people's home, and we don't wear goggles. We're not sat now. We're not like satellite to see everything that is happening. But this is where we say we need to cultivate a culture of vigilance. That culture of vigilance. Wherever we go, we need to be vigilant, so that we don't know, we might just be a child savior to save a child's life. So I don't know if there's anything else. I think any questions from Priska or anybody who is watching. Any question before we round up? We've got just about three minutes or so to round up. Saw a couple in Tesco last week and had a feeling there was abuse going on in the house. You see? So this is that culture of vigilance that we're talking about. Because how did you know, or that feeling knew that that there's something going on at home, you know? And this is why sometimes we walk, even like we say, even in shops, you just go in that shop, I just want to go and buy my food and out. But by just being vigilant, you may spot something that may save a life. And like Kate says, whistleblow once you spot any signs. And this is where we talked about, whistleblowing. You mentioned that, Nelly, we can report, we can call child line. You can call child line. There are different places where you could report. And Nelly say, even if it comes to the worst, where you see that child's life is at danger, call 999. That's an emergency. The way the wife treated the husband, you see. Priska said the way the wife treated, that's that vigilant. And you think if they can do that in public, just like you said, Nelly, if that can be happening in public, then you can just imagine what is happening in the home.
Yeah.
And you can tell that child is that grass. That two elephants that are fighting, the child is that grass that is suffering. So I think it's something that we'll need to keep talking about it and sensitizing and educating our community. Nelly, do you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think just imagine if, like what Priska has shared, how long has that kind of behavior been going on? You don't know. So
Yeah.
that's the reason why when you spot it out, it's better you talk about it. I know that there's a saying that people who live in glass houses see very far. I know, again, we call our neighbors nosy neighbors because when something is going on, they just are there on the wind. It's for a reason. It's for a reason because they know what goes on behind closed doors. And they are doing their own bit. That is how they are contributing to make sure that their community is safe by reporting incidents that go on. Because if people in the public don't report to professionals, professionals will not know.
Yeah.
It's like today, this is not related, but I felt really proud of myself today. So today I was going to the garage to give my car. The main traffic light is like a T. At the traffic light, none of it was working. So I went drop off my car as I was coming. It was really hard for cars to go by because it was just initiative that who stops, who goes, and things like that. So I was like, I need to do something. I looked at the number and I rang the traffic control light place, and I gave them the description of the plate of the junction that the light has gone off. And when I came home, I was like, yeah, at least I've saved an accident that I didn't know.
Yes,
Because small things
absolutely.
like that, you don't know.
That's called duty of care. You cared. You care for,
Exactly.
for anyone, you care for your community, and we don't want anybody hurt. So it's neighbor looking after neighbor. Neighbor
Yeah.
look at neighbor. Right. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for our session today. Once again, it's been an insightful one. We're all learning, and educating as well. So, we're gonna be meeting again in 2 weeks' time, and we're going to be coming up. If you want a topic, if you want any topic, that you want us to talk about, please, whether you're watching this after, if you want us to talk about any topic, just drop it in the comment section, and Nelly and I will pick up on it, and then maybe we can have a discussion. And again, please, if you do want to be a panel, join us on the Zoom, so that we can all have an inclusive discussion. Feel free to let us know so that we can invite you, send you the Zoom link so that you can be part of the discussion panel. So with that said, Nelly, anything else before we close it?
I just want to give like reassurance to parents that don't stay with the shame, the guilt, and the regret. We've made mistakes in our parenting, but take it your responsibility that from now, you know that you are in a position to make change. Take that step, focus on how the change will impact your children, your family, your community. So don't stay back to say, well, it has happened, it will just be like that. No, give yourself permission to make the changes. I think that's all I have to say. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks again. So thank
Yeah.
you. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.